Davis steps under center. Gibson and McClendon behind him. Davis with motion by Richard. Will give the ball to McClendon. He leaps. Oh, he doesn't get in. He fumbled the football. Carolina holds. The game is over. And Carolina has won the game.
Finley to throw. Over the middle, intercepted. Wolford again. Wolford the other way at the 30, the 40. Wolford to midfield. Miles Wolford with the pick. The Heels on the doorstep of an enormous victory.
Left side of the line. Hood standing to Williams' right. Williams gonna throw. One-on-one. Davis has it. Touchdown. Carolina wins. Carolina is the Coastal Division champion. Bernard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Gio at the 35. Gio, he's at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Gio is going to take it for a touchdown. Are you kidding me? Connor Barth for the possible win. Snap, spot, kick away, high enough, long enough. It's good! It's good! Carolina has won the game on a 42-yard field goal by freshman Connor Barth. Good gosh, dirty!
This is the Heel Tough Blog Podcast. Hey guys, and welcome into another edition of the Heel Tough Blog Podcast. It is Anthony Pagnotta back with you, and we are not here to talk about the recruiting that Mack Brown is doing. We're going to hold off. We're going to do that later this week because there is another commitment that could be on the horizon. Instead, today, we have a special guest on to talk about the NFL Draft. It's our guy, Daniel Parlegreco, who is back with us. We do this every year for the last 2 years. Now he's back for a third year, and he's here to tell you about what has become a very interesting group of prospects for the Tar Heels that are looking to go to the NFL this year. So, Daniel, it's another exciting draft this year. I think better than the last 2 years in terms of Tar Heel prospects. So it should be fun going through some of those guys. But just overall, this draft is phenomenal, and I know you've been doing a lot of prep for it. So are you excited as we close in on what should be just an amazing event out in Vegas this year, where they're going to make it an absolute event instead of just guys getting here and their names called?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very exciting. I think we're seeing each year the draft turn more and more into a media spectacle. I think we saw that with the Combine this year. It's really turning into such an event where it's geared to entertaining the fans, the average fans. And I think we're going to see that this year. We have a lot of really, really good prospects, though. We don't want the media side of things to take away from the actual the football players that are going to be playing footballs on Sunday coming up here in September.
Well, the Tar Heels will not have anybody that'll hear their name called on night one, so it's pretty much almost certain, unless one of the guys decides to go out to Vegas just to have their name called on day 2 or day 3, that we won't see any of them up there on stage. But there still are a couple of interesting prospects, and I think when you talk about the Tar Heel guys in particular, the one that's really gained a lot of steam, especially since the Senior Bowl, is Jason Strowbridge. When you look at him as a prospect, first, what kind of player is he? And second, do you think that the Senior Bowl and how well he performed has helped his draft stock and potentially made him a guy that that once we thought was a day 3 pick for sure is now possibly on the cusp of going day 2?
Yeah, I think obviously his combine, not his combine, I'm sorry, his Senior Bowl week has really, really helped him. I think what you're looking at with Strowbridge is he's a guy that's versatile. I think versatility is the name of the game with him. Whether you're playing an odd or an even front, he can play on your defensive line, a guy that can play inside, outside. I think at the combine he measured 6'4", 275, good length. So I think he's a guy that's he's in the day 2 mix. I don't have him quite there. I think he's going to probably be early day 3. but a guy that can do a lot. And I think the fact that you can put him in your defensive line rotation and use him as a 3-down player to play against the run or even rush the passer from the inside positions, I think it's going to make him attractive for teams of all schemes.
Well, so we saw him at Carolina. He kind of fit the 4-3 defensive tackle spot, and then this past year the 3-4, more of the 4-eye technique defensive end spot. Out of those two, if you could see him in a system that fits him a little better, which one do you think would fit him?
I probably would actually. I think he's ideally a 3-4-5 technique. Defensive end. He can hold up at the point of attack. I mean, what you see on tape with the guy is he's got incredible thickness, strength in his lower body, and he can take on multiple blocks. He's excellent against the run. Not a guy that's going to that's going to completely dominate in one-on-one matchups, or a guy that you want as your one gap penetrator. Even though he can do it, he's more. I would say he's best used taking on multiple blocks, playing the run. Mm-hmm. He can give you an occasional pass rush. I think his sophomore year he had about 5 sacks. That was his best season. So he's a guy that can do a lot of things. But I think ideally with his size, his length, his strength, his lower body strength, I think a 3-4, a defensive end would be his best position.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought this past year in Jay Bateman's system, he looked a lot more effective, really looked like he was more comfortable with everything that was going on, being matched up and having inside leverage against a tackle and some outside leverage against the guard, as opposed to really lining up head on against some guards and centers his first couple of years on campus. So you move from him, you move on to the offensive tackle side, and you go to a guy that came into Carolina as a tight end, and really the athleticism has stuck for him, but he has really turned into just a great pass protector, and he's the son of a coach that's currently in the league, actually a Super Bowl winning head coach in Andy Heck. So Charlie Heck's a guy that I think a lot of people look at and say he'll probably end up somewhere. Where do you think he's going to end up right now? Because I still feel like we're kind of a little bit confused on where he's expected to land, because he didn't really have a bad Senior Bowl or combine, but really didn't jump out. Where do you think he's at right now as we head towards April?
A guy that I like quite a bit. I watched quite a few games of him, and like you said, he's not a guy that you're hearing a lot of. So what that says is he's probably going to go somewhere on day 3. The question is, what do these teams think? And that's what we don't know. I have him going in the 4th round. That maybe I'm a little bit higher on him than teams are. But like you mentioned, I mean, the guy's got all the length you want in the world. He's the son of a former NFL offensive lineman. He's got good heritage. He's got excellent athleticism, as you mentioned. He's going to have some struggles, obviously, with his height. Being a guy 6'8", he's going to have some leverage issues. He's going to have to keep his pads down. He's going to struggle maybe against squattier built defensive linemen that are lower to the ground. But I think the developmental upside is there. You don't see a lot of bad reps on tape when you watch him. He's not a guy that's going to get you killed, despite the fact that he's he's still learning the position. But even the fact that he's learned the position, he's been a 3-year starter there for the Tar Heels. He's played mostly on the right side, but we saw him play a little bit on the left side as well. So I think there's some developmental upside there. I think he's got the ability to be a potential starter, in a year or two with NFL coaching.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that a really good fit for him, I think, would actually be in Kansas City, where he could kind of develop there. But when you look at him as an as a guy that's an athletic offensive tackle, how important is that in what teams are wanting to do? I look at a team, especially here in the Charlotte area, the Carolina Panthers, who have just such an athletic weapon out of the backfield in Christian McCaffrey. How important is it now, in the way that these offenses are built, these spread offenses are built, to have those athletic offensive tackles, and what can a guy that can pull the way that Charlie Heck can do on some of the run blocking that we've seen? How important is that, and how likely is it that an NFL team will look at that and see that as something that can propel him up boards?
Absolutely. I think we're seeing the transition every year for NFL linemen getting more and more athletic. You're seeing leaner built offensive linemen, a guy like Heck, that can get out in space. He's got the length to make second level contact and get out in front of screens there. And I think we're seeing shorter dropbacks. We're seeing the ball getting out quicker. I think all these things are a positive thing for Heck, and I think he's he's got all the traits you want. Like I mentioned, he's got the length, he's got the athleticism, he's got the good feet. Does he maybe need to get a little bit stronger? Possibly. He can stand there and put a little bit more weight on his frame. But his biggest issue, like I mentioned, with his height is he's going to have some leverage concerns. Dealing with NFL squad year built guys, but I think he's a perfect fit for today's NFL. I think he can play left side, right side, wherever you ask him. He's done it, and he's only going to get better.
So we'll finish up by talking about Myles Dorn, who I think is an interesting prospect. A lot of people, I think, are going to start to become infatuated with those guys that can kind of do a lot of different things for you. Isaiah Simmons is the guy that everybody's talking about, and I'm not trying to compare Myles Dorn to him by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a guy that can do a lot of different things. He can play in the box for you. He's pretty much shown as of last year that he can cover in space if he needs to, even handle playing against some of those slot receivers. He really had no choice a year ago, but didn't get the invite to the combine. Do you think that ends up hurting his stock and maybe drops him out of a day 3 selection as we thought maybe he would be late in the season and after he went to the East-West Shrine game? Or do you think that he ends up holding on to a day 3 spot and stays out of that undrafted group?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, we've seen guys in the past that have knock-on combine invites get drafted, so we just don't know. I think he's obviously in that mix somewhere. I think, like you mentioned, he should get drafted based on the film I saw. A guy that can do a lot of different things. He can play, like you mentioned, the back half of this season. He played a lot of different roles. He played even almost as like a cornerback. He can do those things for you. Not probably something that you want him to do. You probably want him playing closer to box. He uses that short area quickness to quickly diagnose and reach the ball carrier. A guy that really sees things, has a good sense of things, good field vision, good awareness, anticipation ability, trust his eyes. You see some ball skills there too. So he's got some ability. As you see, he's a guy that's mentally alert. He's always quick to react to things, very little hesitation. I think he deserves to get drafted. He's got nice size. He's got some nice versatility. Started 4 years. There's certainly traits to work with Dorn.
Yeah, and you talk about good bloodlines. His dad, Torrin Dorn, of course, had a successful career in the NFL with the San Diego Chargers. So there are a couple guys that have been there, done that for a while for the Tar Heels, and now hopefully they'll end up hearing their names called in this year's NFL draft. So, hey, Daniel, thank you so much, man. As always, we love having you on, and you do some great work. Where can people find your draft guide for this year, a loaded one where, as you told me, you went through 320 prospects, and it's something that people definitely will want to grab. So where can they grab it at?
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to grab it is Amazon. You just type in DTP Draft Guide 2020 Guide. You'll find it there on Amazon. And like you mentioned, this is the most in-depth one I've done, the most amount of players I've done, by far the most amount of pages I've done. My reports are more in-depth than I've ever done before. And always come connect with me on Twitter. That's where I'm the most active social media. My Twitter handle, it's DTP Draft Scout. You come find me on Twitter, and I'd love to connect, talk to you, answer any questions you have, and just talk to draft or anything else you want to talk about.
Well, I'll definitely be picking up my copy and getting ready for the NFL draft here. We are closing in. It'll be at the end of April, so still a little bit of time to get prepared, but make sure you guys pick up your copy today. So, hey, Daniel, thanks for stopping by with us, man. Always great talking to you. Love that you're able to come on this time every year and then just give us a look at our guys, and we hope to do it next year, and there should be some really exciting guys next year, guys like Daz Newsome, De'Ami Brown, even maybe Michael Carter and Javonte Williams, along with so many others. So it's only going to get better from here on out with Tar Heel football, especially with everything that Mac Brown's doing. So thanks once again, man, and we'll talk to you down the line.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
All right, so that is Daniel Parlegreco stopping by with us. Of course, as we mentioned, we've had Daniel on for each of the past 2 years. This is his 3rd year back, and he does such a great job. Again, you can pick that up anywhere. I know Amazon's the best place to get it, but if you can't find it, make sure that you head to his social media page, DTP Draft Scout, and he'll make sure he gets a copy to you. So we want to thank him for stopping by with us. Of course, we encourage you guys to head to to the website, HeelToughBlog.com. We'll have all the NFL draft coverage there for the Tar Heel guys. But right now, a lot of recruiting stuff on the website. You can go back, read the Drake May commitment article, what he'll bring to the table when he arrives at Carolina. You can go back, also read Kobe Paysauer's commitment article from Saturday. He was a little bit of a surprise to many, but pretty much what he told Inside Carolina was that if they got Drake May, he was coming. So Carolina ends up landing his commitment. Make sure you go back and read what he's going to bring to the table as a receiver in the 2021 class, and then it'll finish up, that's right, with Eli Sutton's commitment article from on Sunday. So make sure you guys go back, read that one. Really talented 4-star offensive tackle from the state of Tennessee, the first Tar Heel commit outside the state of North Carolina in the 2021 class. Me and Zach Hubbard, we're going to try to do a podcast here sometime later this week because there is some news coming out on Wednesday that we think you're going to like as well. It should be potentially another name added to that 2021 class. So we're going to hold off until then, but we will make sure that we get you a great edition of the podcast out sometime later this week. Also, make sure that you guys check out everything else that we're doing on the website. We got some great stuff on there for the Tar Heel basketball team as they get ready for the ACC tournament. You can go back, read the Duke recap and my analysis of the game. I know you don't want to read about the team losing, but you can read both of those, and we touch on how the Tar Heels can make a run in the ACC tournament. I know that Josh is going to have the preview up tonight, and also there's an article up there about Garrison Brooks and Cole Anthony receiving some honors today. Garrison Brooks, second team All-ACC in what was a really fantastic year for the junior big man who's going to take over as the leader next year, it would appear, and Cole Anthony, third team All-ACC, despite a year that many considered as a disappointment, but if you go and look at the stats, it was a lot better than I think a lot of people realize. So make sure you guys go and check that out. And then, of course, we encourage you rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any episode. You won't miss that episode that we have coming up later this week. And, of course, we've also got you ready for spring ball. Me and Josh are going to be back to bring you all of the big-time headlines for spring practice. We're going to also talk about some of the great battles that will be going on in camp, and we will even talk a little bit about Sam Howell and his push to try to give Carolina their first Heisman. So there's a ton coming up. Make sure you don't miss out on that. Head over to wherever you listen to this podcast and make sure you subscribe. So once again, want to thank Daniel Parlegreco for stopping by. Want to thank you guys for listening, and as always, go Tar Heels!